Thank you for coming today. My name is Isaac. I work for Man Consulting. We are a consulting services and managed services provider from the Bay Area. We are about 20 people. We are hiring, so if anybody's interested in moving, come talk to me. I've been managing Macs since 2000, I think, in OS 9 days. We have a little bit of a unique situation with the way that our business functions because we have like 50 JSSs. So we have to look at kind of scaling everything beyond just what we're doing at once. So if we make a script, it has to be something that is going to be deployed across as many clients as possible and quickly deployed after that. So quick overview of our agenda here. I'm going to give you an overview of kind of some of the clients that we do support and how they're a little bit different. I'm going to talk about security and compliance because that comes up a lot, especially across all of these clients. How we've simplified our deployment methods, and how we've made our support life easier for our consultants. There's a lot of small topics, basically, is what we're going to be going through. So if you miss anything, the deck will be online afterwards. Also, links will be posted. There's a URL at the very end where all the links will be posted, so don't rush to take pictures or anything. So our clients. These are some of the clients we work with. We work with a bank with 10,000 PCs and 100 Macs, and support has no clue how to deal with them. We have a lot of issues with getting Apple updates through a firewall that won't let them happen, so we have to do manual patch management. We work with a local SMB, and they actually make a physical product, unlike most of our clients who make made-up things in the air. So they have an office manager that actually does their deployments. So she orders machines and she prepares them for the new hires. And we provide more tier 2 support. Most of the people are self-sufficient. We have a global startup. They are in about 15 or 20 countries. Some of the offices are about 2 people. So there's no servers in these offices. Sometimes the internet connection is a 1 megabit DSL connection. We have a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant client that we have to constantly audit. We have to have an audit trail. And anytime a computer is out of compliance, we need a trail that shows what happened, why it happened, and how we resolved it in the time it took to resolve it. Going on, we have a HIPAA compliant client. They have similar to SOC 2 compliance requirements, but there's less auditing that we have to constantly do, and there's not auditors coming in on a 6-month basis. We have another client that's security-minded, and they actually have, their security department came up with requirements that made HIPAA and SOC look weak, I guess. They had a password complexity requirement that Apple's profiles couldn't meet, and the command line version of PW policy couldn't actually get all of them. And they don't have a directory, so it was kind of hard to kind of shoehorn that in and convince the security team that this is what you got, sorry. Mobile startup, it's people that are all on iOS, and it's techs in the field. So they have no computers in their JSS, but they have hundreds of iPhones, and we're doing simple things like pushing VPN. And then last, there's actually the consulting company, and that's us. We use Casper internally to make our lives a little bit easier and help our consultants. Some examples of how we would do that is when we set up a new Wi-Fi network for a client, we make a profile for it and scope it to our consultants. So that when somebody shows up on site and they've never been there before, they're not fumbling on their phone to tether to get onto the internet record to then find the Wi-Fi password for this specific network. So starting with security and compliance, I know you guys have been using Macs for a long time, and these are actually things that we've heard from people, and it's usually engineers. They don't want to run antivirus because it's going to slow their machine down. FileVault slows my machine down. They load beta OSs because their iPhone's on a beta, so they want to use the cool new feature, and then nothing works, and they come back and complain about it. So I'm going to go through the things that we did to streamline our compliance. And the first one is antivirus. We had to identify a product that was fast to deploy, did not require an AD, because no one has AD servers in the startup world in San Francisco, and no Windows servers either, or servers for pretty much inside. It's usually a Mac Mini running caching servers, most of what we see. So this met our needs, cloud-based. We could get it up and running in 15 minutes, but there was no workflow from Sophos about this. So we wrote our own, and when a consultant goes on site and a client wants antivirus, we have them follow these 2 steps. They go to this link here, which sets up a 15-day trial. They go grab a script, and they put it in the JSS. They create a smart group for computers that do not have the Sophos antivirus app. Create a policy, executes once a day and check-in. We scope it to that group. We go to the Sophos Cloud portal for that customer that we just created, and we copy this link here, which is the downloader for it. And then we actually just paste it into the script here as the variable number 4. Now, anywhere between 15 minutes and a day, we now have antivirus deployed to 100 computers, and that's it. So that script will be up. It also does some other interesting features, like it'll remove old versions of Sophos. It'll remove it with the tamper protection still enabled. We found a way to do that. And it'll do some checking, and it'll actually retry a couple times because the installer fails occasionally. Next on the list is FileVault. And I'm not going to tell you how to do FileVault. It's, I mean, you can do it. One thing that we do is we avoid institutional keys. I don't like the fact that there is a single unlock password or key to unlock an entire fleet. And there's no audit trail on this. You can't tell who unlocked it, or how they got it. So we stay away from institutional keys altogether. If you don't have a key escrowed, Elliot Jordan has a MacBrain deck, which I'll link as well, on how to find those computers that don't have their keys escrowed and re-escrow them for you. So another thing that we don't like is I don't like single passwords. IT support accounts make our lives easier, but they're inherently insecure. Most of you probably have an IT support account password or a local admin password that 3 or 4 people have left the company since it's been changed last. Maybe some contractors know it because they came in and did some work. So you also can't audit or restrict access with these accounts. So you don't know who used the account to break in. So what we actually do to make this better is we sat down and said, okay, well, the FileVault keys are escrowed to the JSS. We removed the central admin account. We realized that Jamf creates a JSS admin account for us. And what we do is we just randomly generate a 120 plus character password for that JSS admin account, rotate it weekly. And if we ever need to actually get to it, I have a policy that I can scope a computer to it and change it to something that I know. And then after a week, it's just going to get garbled again. So that's if we want remote access. Now, the other thing that we do is if you need to get into a laptop, you recover the key from the JSS. And actually, these steps have changed slightly because they're more for Mavericks. In Yosemite, the steps that we use are you get the key, you go into FileVault recovery mode, which is don't type anything in for about a minute, and then hold down the power button. Come back into recovery mode, you type in the individual key, and it'll ask you to change the user's password on the machine. And I like that because we are not being sneaky IT admins. They know that we were on their computer. So it's a little easier to say, hey, sorry, I had to update your computer and change your password. Another workflow, if you do want to be sneaky, recover the key, not institutional key, sorry about that. Recover the individual key from the JSS, target it, copy the data off, clone the laptop, do whatever you want with it, hand it back. That's if you need to deal with management on some HR issues. So, Next up on compliance is EFI passwords. So EFI passwords are great. They have, in the past, they have blocked some attack vectors. And all you hear about now is how Apple's firmware is being hacked by Thunderstrike or the FireWire DMA attacks. EFI passwords actually blocked the FireWire DMA attack before it was even public. So it's a precaution. It's not going to stop any of the other attacks, but something. Also, staff wiping machines. We work with a lot of technical companies where engineers you'll ask them to install Casper, they'll install it, and a virus will pull down, they'll get encrypted, and then what they'll do is they'll go create a second partition on the drive and install a fresh OS. They'll work out of that partition, and every week they'll reboot into the Casper partition and let it check in and make sure that the compliance box is checked. So we had to implement EFI passwords to stop the smartest people in the company from doing the stupidest things in the company. Sorry, I'll stop laughing. So also, the other nice thing about EFI passwords is when somebody steals a laptop and it's FileVault protected and has EFI password, it doesn't help you recover it. You're never going to get that machine back. LoJack for laptops it doesn't work, especially if you have these enabled. But they get a doorstop. They cannot sell that laptop on the streets. It's like activation lock almost in a sense. If they want to get that laptop to boot into an OS, they actually have to take it to Apple, have the genius call somebody else after they've proved that they own the laptop, and the person on the phone gives the genius the challenge response key to turn off EFI. So that's more just a ha-ha. Patch management. I frequently find a lot of IT people that are scared of updates because that one time an OS update broke something. And it's valid. I've had Mac OS updates just completely cause weeks worth of work for me. There was one that if you had EFI enabled, actually you'd go back to a blinking folder. It was a firmware update in Yosemite. But can't be afraid of updating, so we make sure we have a very aggressive patch schedule when we're doing these. So also, sometimes not updating things causes issues. If anybody's using Centrify here, you know the nightmare that is not staying 100% up to date with their plugin. Most Mac OS updates, I think like it's every third one, will break some version of Centrify if you're not at the one that was released the day of that update. And the issues are people not logging in, so the CEO's on vacation and his laptop doesn't work all of a sudden because he can't log into it. So our recommendations are update everything frequently, and I probably shouldn't even need to tell you guys that, but so tying it together, when we do our compliance, we automate as much as possible. I'd rather automate than report. So if antivirus is not installed, install it. If encryption's not enabled, enable it. Just force it. You get a restart and you're done. Use Zendesk or your ticketing system and use the email alerts for when a computer moves into a group of out of compliance to generate a ticket. It's an actionable item that this computer doesn't have antivirus on it for some reason. You actually have to go in, make notes of it, close the ticket, and then you can also search to see if that computer constantly doesn't do it and find that engineer who has a second OS. Same with Sophos Cloud. It will email you alerts of malware or a virus found and whether or not it cleaned it up. If it couldn't clean it up, it'll tell you manual actions required. And don't sacrifice security for the speed of your work. Take your time. So next up is deployment. We had to do deployment a little differently because we're not constantly at these clients. We are their IT resource maybe 2 hours a week. And maybe they're hiring faster than we can keep up with them. So our goals were to make an easily modifiable deployment process that could be very modular. Non-technical staff had to immediately be able to go in and do it. Office managers should be able to unbox a machine. I should be able to drop ship a computer to somebody with DEP nowadays, and that's it. And no servers. None of our clients have servers. Process here, computer's unboxed. Enrollment happens, however it's going to be, DEP, quick add package, web. Self-service pops up after enrollment, and there's a policy there called deploy new computer. After that runs, the machine restarts, and it's usable. So that's our imaging workflow. I actually have not used Casper imaging at all. Sorry, guys. So here's the script that actually ties this together. What we're doing is we're caffeinating the machine so it doesn't fall asleep while it's downloading 1.5 gigs of Microsoft Office and failing from Amazon S3. We run a Jamf policy where we're triggering deploy. And then we're killing all the caffeinate processes. I think this could be one line, but and then what we're doing is we're taking all of these items that we want to install, and what we're doing is we're making policies for each of them and giving them the deploy trigger. So if at some point they want to remove Skype from their deployment packages, I check a box and I'm done. So if I want to add something in, create a policy, throw a package in, that's next. You'll notice some of our security items, they don't actually happen at deploy because they're always happening at check-in. They're constantly happening. I want those to, like, no matter what happens. So those will kick in automatically as well. And this is what our imaging process looks like here. Sometimes we'll do it on enrollment after we've gotten 100% with clients, but when we're rolling out Casper, I don't want reinstalling Office on machines that already have it and reverting versions back and stuff like that. So now up to the point of making support easier. We want to go home, just like you guys. And these are some of the things we've done. One of them is update inventory now. When we're dealing with zero-day vulnerabilities for Flash, Java, 10.10.5 had that really bad root escalation vulnerability, and a lot of our clients were like asking us multiple times a day where their status was. We came up with this one, which was just duplicate the update inventory policy, make it run once per computer instead of once per day, week, month. And then whenever we need to get a full inventory of all our machines, pretty much for that moment, we flush that policy completely. All the machines will check in. Now, make sure your MySQL database is tuned for this. If you have 30,000 computers doing a recon at once, I'm not sure what will happen to your JSS, actually. I think I have made Jamf Cloud a little slow a couple times. So I'm sorry about that if you are on the same instances. Another one that we came up with was run single command once. We don't have SSH access to these computers. We're not on the same LAN. Again, I've never used Casper Remote either. I'm sorry. It's, like it's just not something that fits our scale. So we sat down and thought, well, scripts are run as root. The output's logged in the JSS, so if I need some diagnostics, what's the best way to get it? And I made a GitHub repo for this, so if anybody can't remember it or wants to add to it, there's actually one feature I need to add, which is I need the process to be terminated automatically after 60 seconds. I need to figure that out, because if you run just ping google.com on this, this will run forever. You'll never get output until the computer restarts, and this will just, you'll never get policy check-ins either. But what this looks like in our JSS is a simple script here. We scope it to one computer when we want to, and we type the command we want to run in. This was a case where somebody was complaining about spotty internet. And I wanted to know whether or not they were getting packet loss to Google. And the output I got was the output of ping. So not packet loss to Google. Another example we've used, somebody says their computer's running slow. I want to know what's running on that computer right now. Not at next recon, not by team viewing in and asking them to type PSAX and trying to explain a terminal to them. I just want that data. I couldn't even fit it on the slide, I'm sorry. But you get what's going on here. It's processes listed. And the JSS actually sized properly to show me all of the data. Again, be mindful of what you're doing. It's a root command. Don't let your junior techs do this. Maybe run it on your machine first and copy and paste it. It's running as root. Don't brick a machine with it. Wi-Fi networks, rogue Wi-Fi networks. This has been a problem for anybody who is near apartment complexes, because Xfinity shows up all the time, or if your office is above a Starbucks, because AT&T Wi-Fi shows all the time. And these are open they're unencrypted open networks that are 2.4 gigahertz, which means they have an extremely long range, and they're extremely fast to connect to. So even with the preferences to set which Wi-Fi network you want to connect to first, set, a lot of times you get one of these anyways. And so what people were showing up and saying, I can't print, Wi-Fi sucks. And we're sitting here troubleshooting a Wi-Fi network that we just deployed that for all purposes works great when we're on it. Until finally we found somebody with this and we're like, oh, well, you're on Xfinity Wi-Fi from the apartment building across the street. So yeah. But we also want these people to be able to use Xfinity Wi-Fi when they're out, so I don't want to blacklist it. If somebody's at a coffee shop, yeah, they should be using Wi-Fi. So we created an extension attribute that reports all of the SSIDs that are on the preferred Wi-Fi list, and we created a script that will remove specific ones. And again, we did this in a way that was extensible. We wanted it to be a variable. In this case, we are just removing Xfinity from the preferred networks list, and we do it once a week. So if somebody connects to it, great, they can, but we're going to eventually pull it off. How many people here have GSX? How many people would like GSX access just to look up the age of your computer but couldn't get it because Apple said, not that many. All right, so we had that problem over like 50 times because Apple won't give us GSX access to look up our clients' machines, but they also wouldn't give our clients access because they were between 50, 200, and 500 and didn't want to set up a tech bench and do all this stuff. The data is in the serial number when the machine was created. Apple's supply chain is extremely, extremely fast. The machine is usually built for you. So the purchase date and the creation date are 2 weeks difference, right? It's enough. So we actually created this born on date extension attribute that tells you the week that that machine was built and the year and obviously month. So now we can go and do lifecycle management for clients without GSX. We can say, I want all the machines that are 3 years old so that we can give them new computers and do that. So that is also available, and that has made my life extremely easy. Test sets, and I kind of didn't know if I should put this in because it's really, really difficult to explain. And I'd almost like more of a feature request on Jamf Nation that I'm going to post afterwards is, I'd like to say only install this policy, like install it on all computers, but maybe do 10 per hour. Like I want to rate limit how my policies are pushed out, especially large ones that cause a lot of network traffic. Or OS updates where I start finding out that it's going to break user login. Like I need to be able to just stop that process. So this is where test sets come in. There's a million ways to do this. The reason we use this method was once the test sets are created, unlike static groups, you don't have to make sure everybody is scoped. So you can say all computers and then basically have a junior person pull a pin, which lets it go to the next set of people. The way that we did this, since there's no easy way, we created 2 static groups, A and B. And IT support people were in A. Power users were in B. We then had to actually create negatives of these test sets as smart groups. And I'll show you why in a minute. So we have 2 smart groups. That's all but test set A, all but test set B. And then this is basically what they look like as a smart group. And the reasoning behind it is we actually make exclusions for these 2 groups. So we scope it to all computers, and then we exclude these 2 groups. So with both of these groups excluded, everybody in A is scoped to the policy. With one of these groups excluded, everybody that is in either of these groups is scoped to the policy. So I can push an OS update out to just A. Wait a week, don't hear any complaints. All right, go ahead and remove B, the second one. Wait a week, don't hear any complaints. Now just let the OS update roll out. And it looks like this. So we have just A will be run this policy. Next week, come in, and just A and B are going to run this policy. I click remove again, and all 150, 200, 300 computers are now going to run this policy. Again, there are better ways to do this, and I think it would have to probably come from Jamf so that we could say 20 computers at once on an hour or a day or basis. So this link here has links to all of the scripts, extension attributes, and a write-up of how we did test set A and B, because it's still something really hard to wrap your head around, but once you implement it, it's really simple to use. You can just tell somebody to go in and add these exclusions. There's my email address if you want to argue with me about institutional keys versus individual keys. Thank me for, I don't know, maybe making your life a little bit easier today, or if you have any questions. So a lot of this, kind of going back, a lot of what we had to do was, we have 50 JSSs now. I want to have 500 soon, maybe 1,000. So how do I get there? And there'll be more kind of automation coming in because we're only using Jamf Cloud for this, because we don't want to be full-time JSS administrators in the sense of updating OSs and being responsible for their security. So, and then now I'll leave this up so you can write it down. And does anybody have any questions?
The script that you had for the JSS, will that allow warranty?
Nope, only the date that that computer was manufactured. And the reason we're using that instead of the selfsolve.apple.com scripts is once the computer is out of warranty, it doesn't give you a date anymore. So you all of a sudden don't know how the computer is. We assume, since most clients, they always buy AppleCare. So we assume 3 years is warranty. And if I need to look up warranty on a one-off basis, I can just do that manually. So there are extension attributes that will go in and parse self-solve and will get the warranty information and tell you when it's going to expire. But they may break and they don't give you, like after 5 years, you don't know if the computer's 5 years old. It's just not under warranty, whatever that means.
We're using basically the same system as you are using for the administrator account within the JSS, but that the JSS randomizes on a periodic basis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since we updated 9.8, we have found that we have broken up the system about 50% of our computers consistently. These will not update
Really?
The password after the upgrade. And I was wondering if you had seen the same problem or had any workaround to it.
I actually have not seen the same problem because we've switched to using FileVault Recovery to log in, because that gives us the trust with our users that we're not sneaking around and being, creepy IT. So I actually have not. That's probably something to test. And if you can replicate it, I think that would be a very good bug report too. Okay. Fail forever? Okay. Huh. Everybody beware of that, I guess, for now. Or if you find it, try and tack onto our bug report, please. Questions? Oh, sorry. Any other questions?
You said that you don't allow IT accounts on the machines. How do you rotate the FileVault keys without having your Casper account, the she's mentioning, not be FileVault enabled?
The question was, how do we rotate our FileVault keys without having the Casper account be FileVault enabled? We actually don't rotate our FileVault keys. We escrow them once and leave them at that, and that's generated by the user. Okay. So each machine has its own unique key. And also, one thing that I failed to mention was there is an audit table in my SQL database that audits every time somebody looks up that key. So that button triggers an action. That's why there's a button instead of just the data. When you click on that button, there's a table that says, Isaac looked up the FileVault the escrowed FileVault key for John's computer. So. The question is, do we have a dashboard to get the 2,000-foot view of all our JSSs? And the answer is no. I haven't logistically figured out a way to do that in a secure manner where I'd have to put all the passwords in the same place, somehow log in. It's probably something we can do through the API, I think, with like a read-only account. But generally, since we're at clients frequently, we'll sit down and look at their JSS while we're there. Or they'll even we have some people that manage their own JSS, and we just kind of provide the tier 2, tier 3 support for them. So they are boots on the ground for us.
You have so many of the JSSs, are they all working off of an independent file repository, or do they have a shared file repository?
The question is, do we use shared repositories? No, we actually set up a separate S3 account for each one. Usually the customer pays for it. The caching server that is the Mac Mini, the only reason to have a server in San Francisco, I guess, is it will do local distribution. But my goal is, if a customer ever needs to leave, I want it to be as easy as possible for them. I want them to be able to take their entire setup, and because a lot of our clients, we start at 50, they're going to be 600 or 700 in 2 years possibly, and they're going to have an IT department, but right now they don't. So.
So, I mean, does it become cumbersome that, you have to load up, say, like, X number of versions of, like, the latest Flash plugin and whatnot using that, right?
So the question is, does it become cumbersome uploading multiple copies of file, like every time Flash has a vulnerability? That's why you'll actually see why we're trying to use scripts as much as possible. We do have, basically, it's a master spreadsheet of all the clients, and when a security response comes out, first of all, we need to get permission to run them, because we can't just update everybody to Flash in a company. Somebody may get upset. We just have a junior tech sit down and load up Casper Admin and just option click. I would really love it if Casper Admin, I've seen the feature request has been on Jamf Nation for 5 years or something like that, to allow for multiple configurations for Casper Admin, where you could just like choose, client A, client B, client C, client D. But I'm a very different use case than I guess like 99.9% of the client base. So. Yeah.
So you referenced back to the FileVault security kind of thing, and you said, yeah, no problem. If we need get the key, we can get the key, we can log in. That's great, assuming there's not something wrong with the machine or something that you need to get onto the machine somehow, and whether it's remotely or locally, and you don't have that capability. LCD's broken.
Sure. If the machine's online, and I need to get into it, I can push any sort of. Sorry, the question is with the FileVault key escrow, if something's wrong with the machine, like the screen's broken or something like that, how do we access it remotely? We will actually push a copy of TeamViewer unattended to it and log in. We will go in and turn on VNC.
Again, assuming that it's on, and you.
Assuming that it's on.
If the screen's broken, the machine was shut off, the person can't easily log in.
Target disk.
So,
You can target disk mode the computer to another computer that has a working screen. I mean, holding down the T key is you don't need to see much to make that happen. And then you use the other computer as the host processor.
you still have to have the password then for.
But then you use the password for, yeah. I mean, it's
An EFI password and the other password.
if I have a broken computer, I'll take it to Apple. It's not my job to fix somebody's coffee spilt laptop. It's theirs.
The other thing, sorry.
Yeah.
You mentioned DEP, and then you said some of your clients are pretty small.
Mhm.
I thought DEP seemed to be one of those things that you had to have a pretty decent amount of machines purchased to be onesie twosies.
Yeah. So the question is, are there requirements for DEP for smaller clients? And the requirements for DEP are you have a terms account. You actually have a terms account is the only requirement. So if the client is willing to set up a terms account and you can get a CEO to sign off on it, we've set up DEP for people with 20 computers.
So you have a DEP number.
Yeah. They're real companies that exist somewhere. So all of the information's there, and we set up DEP usually when somebody's at 20, because we know they're going to be at 500 at some point, and I don't want to have that back like missing data. So.
Your choice of antivirus for your clients, Sophos, is one of them, or the one that you mentioned.
Yes.
Does it have the same? I don't have a personal experience
So the question is, does our choice of Sophos, does it have the same client application like structure that
Agent and application.
the agent application? It's just the antivirus application. So it doesn't have an agent that you then have to have. You have to manage the agent's version, and you have to manage. I get that usually in enterprise IT, and we're constantly asking the guy who runs the server for both copies, because if one goes out of date, maybe it breaks the other one. So no, Sophos is completely self-contained, and it handles all the reporting and check-ins in the cloud, and that's where we want everything for our companies.
It's terminal, which we can control it almost all return.
Yeah, and it has terminal availability as well, which is really nice, and it doesn't crash the system as much as other antivirus solutions. It will still break things occasionally. I haven't found an antivirus solution that doesn't have a bad update because it's kernel level. You had a question?
Yeah, so are you doing all of your patch management by hand and using JSS, or you use products like RPTD, Monkey, Dropbox, System?
The question is, do we use any other products to do our patch management, like auto packagers or anything like that? We do all of our patch management by hand. I don't want to rely on a third-party source for patch management or where the updates are coming from. I do have a slight fear of somebody else maintaining my packages that I'm not paying them for it, to not do something wrong accidentally or on purpose. And I don't want to have to constantly test that. So.
When Jamf offers that, do you consider taking advantage of it?
If the question is, if when Jamf offers that, will I take advantage of that? I will give a standing applause to Jamf when they offer it, and I will pretty much turn it on whatever automatic function it is, because I'm paying them specifically to do it. And if they do something wrong, I have somebody's neck that I can get close to. I won't hurt anybody, but it will be, a little threatening.
So, you said you guys range like from small to big, small business. You ever thought of setting up JDSs and using JDSs to have higher child? That way you don't have to like manually load packages, stuff like that.
Question is, do we ever think about doing JDSs and doing the parent-child? The only time I set up a JDS was in my CCE class. It was the same time I set up a NetBoot server for the first time in 9 years. No, I don't want to manage servers. I really want this to be as cloud-based as possible, and I want all of my junior IT staff to be able to set it up, use it, and use it properly. So.
But, I mean, that's the advantage of the JDS. If you have a parent who put one package in, you have the parent-to-child relationship that replicates.
So we do, if we have the parent-child replication available, the other issue is all of our clients are self-contained. So I'd have to set up a JDS for every single client, and I don't want any cross-contamination of packages. So some clients have confidential packages stored, and I don't want other clients to accidentally somehow see that because they're allowed read access to. It's church and state 100% for us is where we stand. And it's not a bad idea, it's just kind of our philosophy. Yeah.
So my information the other day is that all your packages get written to your database. You can move out our database because every single packet was replicated through the back end. Instead of RCing from parent to child, we actually crashed our test environment because we made the assumption that several gigs, like 50 gigs worth of packages, were not going to go into our database. We crashed our test environment.
Very important. You need to put all the things in the spot. And once the package is done, your database is going to expand.
All goes well.
I can say, I mean, I've had to do that and, waiting for the JDS to open up, but it's not that bad. There are some cases.
There are, and they're just, in our environment, they're not. So.
One question I have is how do you deal with some of the companies that require overzealous license
The question is, how do we deal with companies that deal with overzealous licenses like Adobe? I'm a huge fan of subscription-based licensing. We recommend that all of our clients use Office 365, not for email at all, but we purchase the business plan, which is $750 a month to get Office. Creative Cloud for Teams, same thing. Anything that we can find that is subscription-based licensing is immediately thrown onto the docket because low cost and the availability to not have to deal with packaging a license file. We just send them an email with their credentials. If we have SSO, if you have Okta installed, they don't even need to know that different password. It's just, there's a button in self-service that says install Office, and they log in with their Okta account, and it's licensed. Also, Office licenses expire on the boxed copies, and you have to start calling Microsoft to beg them to reactivate it. I'm charging money to call Microsoft on a $100 product, and it may be costing the customer $100 for me to call. So we just go 100% subscription-based everywhere we can. So.
You mentioned you use S3 for your distribution.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned you have global clients.
Mm-hmm.
How are you leveraging that? Are you doing multiple for people that have overseas offices? Are you leveraging a separate instance on S3 or?
It's a single instance on S3, and my assumption is Cloudflare is supposed to kind of handle the balancing of that. I think that was why Cloudflare was added to S3, unless I'm wrong. But does anybody know if Cloudflare does balancing and Geo?
That's correct.
It's correct. So
If you somebody download from Australia, you'll actually see that on your bill, like 5 gigs from Australia.
yeah.
It's awesome.
So Cloudflare, so somebody confirmed Cloudflare handles the balancing of where it's coming from. So they're always going to get likely the closest AWS, whatever they call the S3 regions. So.
How do you handle setup assistant in cases where like the office manager is setting up the DEP? Like, are they creating the account for the employee that it's intended for?
The question is, how do we handle setup assistant when somebody's setting up the account? Yeah, generally the only admin account on the computer is the end target user's name. I'll have the office manager set up a password for them and hand it off, and then maybe sit with them and change it on first login. But the only admin account we ever have on these computers is the person who is physically taking the computer around with them all times. And then when we're done, we wipe the machine, and we usually actually use Apple buyback for everything too. Machines don't get reused in most of our clients. Apple gives us money for it, and then we buy a new computer because people like to feel. You hand somebody a new computer, they feel great. You hand somebody a computer with dents on it, they feel, and kind of mediocre about their job all of a sudden, and it's the first day. Or they're here, peel the stickers off. The last guy left. I have pictures of computers that are covered in pink ponies with sparkly rainbows, and I've actually had to hand this to an engineer real quick, and he was like, I was like, don't ask. It's so. Anybody else? Sorry, he's got exactly what I'm talking about. So there's actually, I think there's a pink pony on that now. You're from Tennessee, right? I heavily discourage people from using Centrify as much as possible. The same with Thursby's Admit Mac or any product that changes the Active Directory login unless you have a very valid and compelling reason to do it. Because those softwares have both in the past caused me, nearly cost me clients, even when I wasn't the one who had deployed it. Thursby's Admit Mac at one point, when people were using the Creative Suite, they would save to drives, and all of a sudden the file would say, I can't save. And then you try and open it again, it would say, no, this is in use by another computer. And that file was gone, and you have to go a days back. Centrify has, at least 5 times in my career, stopped somebody from logging in because they did an OS update. So anything that is going to be that hard to continuously maintain, I don't want to sit there and follow their blog daily to find out when the new version's out. And this is as recent as the 10.10.5 had that. So It's not changing. So.
Have you had any issues with trying to manage printers for clients?
No. Sorry, the question is, have we had any issues trying to manage printers for clients? Generally, no. You know, like I said, a lot of our clients are very free-loving, kind of low-tech in the sense of that, so we don't really manage printers. There's the printers are on the network, they're bonjour. Apple's made it so easy to add a printer now, you can do it without any issues. The only ones we ever do manage are the large format Ricos or Xerox because you're required to install a driver. But otherwise, we just let them install their own printer when they want to. It's right there. It's called Conference Room B printer. So I haven't run into that. I have run into issues with drivers being left out of date on the large format printers. It doesn't happen as much anymore, but Xerox decides that they just don't want to update to 1010 on their drivers for like these 6 models, and their answer is, well, we'll get to it next year when 1011's out, and great, I'll get a Rico. You know, and then Rico does it to you, and then you get a Canon, and then so. Anything else? No. All right, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your time in Minnesota.